introduce our performers tonight. This evening's performance is going to be selections from the Old Log School. The Old Log School is a collection of poetry written by one of our performers, by William Henry Young. And they are going to be reading selections from his poetry. It's inspired by his childhood and also 4 generations back of his family and growing up in the hollers of eastern Kentucky. So the Appalachian Mountain region, very interesting culture there. And as we've done research and as we've talked to our performers, we found a lot of connections between New England traditions and the traditions in the Appalachian Mountains. So that has been very interesting. So I'm happy to introduce Henry, Penny Cartier, Ray Cartier, and Patricia Young will be our readers and our musicians this evening. Thank you.
I would like to just say a few words real quickly. We came to Cape Cod about 11 years ago, and one of the very first things that I did was to go to, this might not have been 11 years ago, but anyhow, sometime in the past, went to the Grange Hall in Sandwich, where they were doing a reader's theater of Spoon River Anthology. Now, I had studied Spoon River Anthology along with Stephen Vincent Benet's John Brown's Body. And over the years also, I had either acted in or directed Our Town 3 times. Spoon River Anthology takes up that area of Illinois where the Lincoln family moved to it. They moved, Lincoln was born in Kentucky, they went to Indiana, then they went to Illinois. So Spoon River Valley is where Lincoln came to manhood. There are a lot of poems from that set, or that collection of poems, and they, what they came to be called were graveyard poems, because the narrator is walking through the cemetery, and the people who are buried in these spots speak to the narrator. Nancy Hanks, Lincoln's stepmother, was one of them. But anyhow, what inspired me to write the series, there are about 48 poems in the series, was Bourne Historical Anthology and Our Town. You get the Illinois frontier, you get a New England town, and here you're going to get a little bit where I came from. Thank you for coming. Oh, another thing, we have 2 folks here today. One who might be about, 60, 65? Mrs. Mary Langton. She is Beth's mother. You might know Beth. She's 94 today, celebrating her birthday. In that very first Reader's Theater that I ever heard, because I had directed a lot of plays over the years and I never had heard anything about Reader's Theater. Well, there's a gentleman here tonight who actually performed in that Spoon River Anthology. He was, I believe he was 30 yesterday. Yeah, maybe. But anyhow, he is the postmaster in Forestville. Bob Maxim, I'm sorry. And we're going to tune up, make sure that we're in tune. Start. You ready?
Cumberland Mountain Range is a spur of the Appalachian mountain range, which begins in Canada and ends in the breadloaf regions of Georgia and North Carolina. Much of the land west of the Appalachian Range was inhabited entirely by Native Americans until the era of exploration and settlement by the French and English. Oh yes, the Spanish monarchy slipped their claim in prior to the French and English claims. Yet, it was the French and English powers which kept the land to the west of the Appalachian Range and south of what is now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, from settlement until the end of the American Revolution. At the end of that conflict, settlers began the long historical trek, which eventually ended at the Pacific Ocean. Shortly following the Peace of Paris, the international agreement which ended that period of our history, settlers moved across the mountains from Virginia through Cumberland, Big Stone, and Pound Gaps into what became Kentucky. These settlers found the land unspoiled by European-style government, philosophy, and exploitation. Although it wasn't a land of milk and honey in the biblical sense, it was a time and place where dreams could be realized by hard work and perseverance. Yes, the land would be exploited. Those settlers and their offspring worked hard. They fought hard and they persevered. The following will say something about one small section of that migration and something of the people who have lived through more than 200 years of that habitation and exploitation. Watts Creek, Kentucky is one of those places. Sit back, listen to their voices.
At the forks of two creeks, both running red water of nature's exploitation, by men bent on greed who were only satisfied when nothing was left to exploit, stands the old log school. Its logs were cut long ago from the virgin land at the beginning of that exploitation by men who dreamed of educating their sons and daughters, who in their turn intensified the speed of that exploitation. Simple in structure, one door, two windows, and a gaping hole where once stood a chimney to warm the casual scholars who attended when season's work was done and the luxury of learning allowed. Stones from the old chimney are scattered along the creek banks, loose hay and fodder spill through every opening. Tom Dobson's cow pulls a mouthful of hay from the spot where my head rests, and voices echo a not too distant past. So, walk with me down by the empty creek bottom fields, ghosts of Lost Creek dead. Do you remember muddy roads, haunting mountain coves you once passed on your way to the old log school? The old log school is still there. I have shadows of proof. Old log benches are covered with hay and fodder, but you can make this old house live somewhat longer. Walk with me in moonlight, ghosts of yesteryears. Give me your memories, long gone from ours. Tonight, I walk with spirits of lost time. Tonight, we walk with togetherness I've never felt before. I see shades and meet them in the cold, silent light of a full moon, whom I have only heard mentioned in loud, boastful tones or whispers. If we are proud, we boast. If we are ashamed, we whisper in hushed tones. I have no reason to be ashamed. For what is mine, I will claim. I will have the courage to say, your blood is the same blood that flows through my veins. You lived your lives. Your truths stand untouched by mine or any other's hand. Lots Creek run on, and still your murmuring waters and river and ocean. Run by the old log school, now deserted by all but myself and phantoms, shadows on the old decaying logs. Do I fancy they speak? Or are the sounds I hear sounds of troubled water, water troubled by decay? Kinsmen,
we speak to you
of times past and things swiftly fleeing down time's fast-moving stream. We speak to you of times and memories many thought were lost. We are passing before you. What we speak of are yours and your children's, what they are worth. Since we died, many things have changed. We were the last pioneers, long after the West had lost its virginity. We lived in natural isolation, sheltered by our hills. We lived simple lives, and often our actions took cruel, crude form. We loved, lived, and died on land left us by our sturdy ancestors. This is your land. Love it.
This
We give to you. Never be ashamed of it. We lived our lives in truth in our own way, and were never ashamed nor afraid what others thought. Now is your time and place. Like us, you will live your lives and your truths.
The first challenge can only be heard in the words of those who came across those mountains to settle in this isolated portion of the Cumberland mountain range. Listen for the reasons for coming. Listen for attitudes, both positive and negative. Remember, they once lived here on this land. It was here their offspring would remember them. Let them speak to you. If one listens carefully, you might be surprised that some of their thoughts and attitudes parallel yours.
Aunt Mary Combs. Aunt Mary, in your ghostly state, can you remember cold winter nights when you told a small boy stories of mountain men and women long gone to meet their eternal fate? You pulled on your old clay pipe and gave him an occasional puff. Life was hard for you, an orphan girl who spent most of her time carding, spinning, and weaving wool for coverlets, socks, trousers, and woolen dresses. What gems of this moldy place can you give one desires to know at all?
Rosin is on the fiddle bow, and 5-string banjos are tuned. The log benches are moved into the schoolyard. It's dance time on young fork of Lot Street. Mally, Mandy, and Susie are here with their bows. The young man with the fiddle under his arm caught my eye and heart. He could play the sweetest fiddle I ever heard. We had 9 sons and 1 daughter. 2 of those sons lie buried in coal mines. I do not remember sorrow, pain, and hardship. I only remember the ringing of the snare.
She told me, and I will relate them to the best of my memory. Yet, memory filters what was told as it enters. Emotion rises within us as we visualize the story the teller relates. The teller alters the facts to suit what is his or her reality at the time of the telling. Reality. What is that? So too in the minds of the listener, the story changes relative to the life the listener has experienced as his or her reality. Listen, I hear many winds blowing, and the story told in more than one way.
Danger Nick Combs. Lord knows I have more descendants than bees in a hive, maybe more. I know my brothers thought it odd that a rowdy who never feared any man wouldn't fight for the land of his birth. I never felt allegiance to either side. My intent was to get so far west war wouldn't interfere with my coming and going. I was a restless man who needed space. Then Nancy got sick and old. Our children needed roots. Land became my desire and love.
John Combs. What proof has anyone that I fought in the Revolution? I did. My family for generations had been British born and bred. I could have fought either side, but I chose the land of my birth, America, to honor and defend. Another member, my brother, chose to be a Tory. Today, his grave, like mine, unmarked, bears no proof of his choice.
Nancy Grigsby Combs. I was 24, almost an old maid. Nick came courting one of the neighbor's girls. I saw him in the moonlight as he walked by one night. I thought he was the most handsome man on earth. I fell in love with his looks. The good man that he was, I learned later in our lives. He was barely 18 years old when we married across the mountains in Virginia. To us were born many children. He never strayed from the love he first gave me. I too loved the ground that held him up. We all knew possession of land became his mistress. She didn't rob us of his gentleness.
Soldier William Cornett. I was known as Soldier Bill for most of my young life. My family lived under the yoke of British oppression. The land I plowed was owned by landed aristocrats. Fight I would and did. At Brandywine, I lost my best friend, William Combs. But my courage never faltered. I saw warfare come to an end, with mighty Britain on her knees.
Freedom!
Me and a man named Bison came over the mountains looking for land rich enough to raise a family. Over Pound Gap we came, found fertile land, untouched, unspoiled. Today, you see the results of those acts.
The truth be told, we will miss some of the exaggerations given us by these shadows we see on the moonlit walls of this old building. The truth, you say? All who have passed through this old log school will tell their truth as they lived it or colored it. Will it be enough to satisfy the standard of truth and nothing but? I want no more or no less. More would be an exaggeration. Less would not give us a clear view of the truth of their lives. What I want is the truth of their lives. I have been known to exaggerate more than a little if it suited me, also less if that too suited me. Don't we all? Let the generations of the land tell you of their lives. Second generation.
I'm a soldier bound for glory. I'm a soldier marching home. I'm a soldier marching home. Come and hear me tell my story. Come and hear me tell my story. All who long in sin have gone. All who long in sin have gone. Yes, I was a soldier in the Civil War. Or it was also called the War of the Rebellion. That's what they called it up north. I didn't rebel. At the first sound of gun that was fired at Charleston, South Carolina, I thought I was ready to fight for the soil in which I was born. Or was it simply that I craved excitement? With Elijah Fuller, I walked to Whitesburg, Kentucky. We joined the Confederate Army. If it was excitement that I desired, we found it in a hurry. A unit of Union soldiers formed over in Ohio. We engaged on Confederate soil at Gladesville, Virginia. We lost. Many of our fellow acquaintances from Perry County either lost their lives or were captured and sent to a prison camp near Columbus, Ohio. Those of us who were lucky and escaped went our ways to regroup, to fight again. No, to plunder and kill the innocent. Elijah and I refused to take part in the needless suffering of those outlaws that these outlaws inflicted on others, who were neither for nor against the Union, who wanted only to live peacefully, unmolested by either side. The two of us escaped, joined the other side, lived out the war as Union soldiers. The rest of my life was devoted to God and His Word. I was blessed with two loving mates, daughters and sons. Our children were taught to love God, to know of His promise for those of faith, to be honest in their dealings with others, to learn, to give, and to curb hate.
Third generation. One person born during the Civil War grew to manhood and became a leader in his mountain community. He was Lou Crawford.
Lou doesn't speak. I speak of him. He was my grandfather, yet listen to the wind blowing. Let us not beg the truth, but see without judgment on your part. Leave the judgment to me, his offspring. Is that old man Father Time, or is the old man Lou? They both should look the same. Lou was a man among men in his life. Many folks knew he lost in the end. He lost to coal company shysters, Green Hill boys who went to college and came back to our hills to pit their wits against coal company hirelings and coal company courts. Lou cut a fortune from our hills and floated it to downstream mills. I have been told he brought the first cast iron cook stove to our people. When the banks of the North Fork were close and her channel deep, he rode upriver on a boat loaded with pots, pans, salt, flour, sugar, and the first cook stove. Old man, you have no right to feel you were robbed. You robbed the land. You helped bring the railroad to our lost hills. You brought coal company hirelings who robbed others, and in the end, you and your children. You were damned to walk the hills that lie desolate, barren, to walk by polluted streams which are no longer clear, to see your dreams crumbled and burned in slate dumps. Walk, Lou. Walk with other mountain shades. You shall not walk in silence. You shall not remember the beauty of our hills. All you shall see are the changes, the waste, the desolation, and hear a lonesome whistle of a freight train echo. That is the most lonesome sound on earth. I've never heard a sound that made mountain boys wish to go beyond our hills as a freight train whistle on a still, cold night. It calls them and promises a new life. It calls, yet reminds them of the silence they leave, silence they may never miss until it calls them back to dust. I do not believe that silence will ever call you. You belong to us. You were formed from Kentucky mountain dust. We shall say you were true to what you believe just. Walk and see your dream dust.
John Young. John, I see you clearly as a shadow in this hand-shaped log building. It was your hands and your brother's hands that shaped these logs, fitted, chinked them, and rived the roof boards, to store fodder for Tom Dobson's cows, to provide a place for the poet to visit and inquire of the nature of our lives. You were never a scholar. You never intended to be one. The woods and fields beckoned you to come, explore, learn, and pass on to those of us who would learn. It was your lot to watch seasons change, to marvel at nature's wonders. How did a huge rock get into my pasture when rocks of this enormity can't be found for miles? Is it of God or the devil? Supernatural speculation appealed to you at the depths of your being. What about the knocking spirit you were supposed to have found at the mouth of Feeder Rock Hollow? Some say it was a natural gift. Others thought it was of the devil. Only you can tell us. I see you speak, but the words can only be discerned by one who reads lips or speculates about devilish intrigue. Your words resound upon my ears, which have long waited for your honest answers.
These hands, like the leather I tanned to make harness and shoes, knew work, loved work, knew love-making's touch and how to shape and fit a log like a good marriage. Mind and hand longs to be artist, poet, lover, man alive. I felt the pride of fatherhood, and the cry of our firstborn echoed from the rafters of our new cabin. 16 years later, that son, Anderson, lay dead, victim of my gun in hand. A robber entered our home. Anderson tried to help. I accidentally shot him, thinking he was the robber returned. His blood could still be seen on our cabin floor. No amount of scrubbing has been able to remove that act from my troubled soul. Although me and Catherine had many children, he was love lost until one bright spring morning, my eyes dim with age lit upon another son. My inner vision told me he would see like me, feel like me, and that through him I would touch and be touched by life's pleasures, surprises, and pain. Sell my soul to the devil? Never. This earth and all its mysteries are of God. It was to him I turned my love and was rewarded with hope.
The ghost dog of Lots Creek. Our road clings to the base of the mountain. It is a new road and follows, in part, the twisting rhythm-like creek. The old road, narrow, dirt only, high up on the mountains, is now abandoned by all but wood animals, and possibly the ghost dog of Lots Creek. Since the new road has been built, the ghost dog is seldom mentioned. He is like so many things we don't have time for. We have places to go, cars to ride, planes to fly. John Young's dog, once familiar to us all, could be seen on the old hill road halfway between the old log school and the overgrown, neglected graveyard where John and so many of his kin sleep. We saw it in the moonlight, threw rocks at it, emptied our pistols at point-blank range, but it was only a shadow which faded when the moon went behind a cloud. Silently, softly, without growl, bark, or bite, some said it was the ghost of all those buried in our graveyard who had gone to hell. That's a thought. But others fear the same fate. Often, hunters go to the old road. They fear going near the weed-covered graveyard. They know the dog awaits them near the old gnarled beech tree. A sense of dread, yes, of yearning, grips their souls. They hesitate, even in daylight. A shiver goes up their spines. They shift their guns, stand their ground firmly. There it stands, the dog, black as coal.
fourth generation. One generation following the Civil War became an era for exploitation which continues into the 21st century. However, an occasional person will reflect upon this exploitation and lead a different life. Lindsay Combs was such a man.
Lindsay, are you one of the shadows reflected on the walls of this old log building? I seem to recognize your gaunt form. The snow falling outside reminds me of the night you died. I walked 5 miles in the silent snow to tell your kin your time on earth was short. I passed Graveyard Point, dirt on wood.
Yes, 'tis Lindsay. I come to speak of time spent here. It was in this old log school a teacher said, "You're a scholar, go for it, make the world your own." I went beyond the mountains only to find my place was here among the hollows and my kin. I have walked the lonesome mountain paths many times since I came back from that insane world of concrete and steel. Many folks said I was just as insane. I took their remarks in silence and loved the mountains with all my being. I have walked them when night enveloped them in dark clouds, when the scents of spring were in the air, when damp leaves told me that winter was near. I know them as a part of my soul. I know even their lost and exploited parts. All has changed here among the hollows of Lots Creek. Something is lost beyond recall. Our mountains will never be the same as they were when I was a boy. The explanation is the face of a comrade, the town you remember passing through, its windows darkened or without hope, a moment you once wished to relive. Our mountains and shadows, our mountains shadows of a silent, changing world.
Chester Young. Great Uncle Elliot lived across the creek from the school. Do you remember Chester? Teacher turned out school to help Elliot take up hay. It rained, you laughed. Some say you poured gravel in Uncle Elliot's gristmill. Years have passed. Both are dead. On clear, cold nights, he chases you through the briar patches on yonder mountain.
Simeon Corner. Some people are born to strife. I was. From the time I can remember, I felt compelled to attack. Never was afraid of the hard lick to my body. I never gave any quarter when it was my turn to dish it out. There was a joyful response deep inside me when I saw an opponent's blood flow. I became a master agitator who could provoke a fight anytime my inward frustrations compelled me to aggression. Now my age and enemies have increased. I look behind me as I walk.
Alice Lloyd, beggar. I came to Caney Creek from Boston, Massachusetts, escaping a soured love affair. I didn't know the results my bruised ego would or could produce. I set in motion a positive chain, first in elementary school, then a high school. Long before I died, a small college bloomed in this isolated mountain wasteland. I found innocent children growing into uneducated adults. They were good mountain folk from whom I begged land to build schools. Since I've become a beggar, love's life burns.
Adeline Combs. It was to you, Adeline, that many love letters were written, scrawled by those with little schooling. They spoke of emotional love, physical love. There was Silas and Thomas Madden who fought for you, for your love. Though they were brothers, they never spoke to each other for years. Others felt for you when your young years lent beauty, seldom equaled in our land of rock, clay, loam, and wildflowers. By your count, you had children by 6 strong mountain men. It took strong men to hold your affection and satisfy your desire. I walked with offspring of your amorous affairs. Know they are my kin. Know that your blood is blood of my veins. and realized the power of beauty and spiritual nature subdued by the animal.
Robert Ritchie. To have book learning, don't always mean you're educated. I went to school altogether maybe 4 years. Ain't got what you call more than a smattering of book sense. But I can hold a handful of dirt in my hand and tell you if it'll bring corn. I can look a young foal and tell whether it'll be a puller or a prancer. Some folks with book learning are like a prancing horse. All show, no go.
Raleigh Combs served in the 2nd Infantry Division as a machine gunner. He was one of the first children to occupy this old log building as a scholar.
I'm the 7th son of the 7th son. It was supposed to be my station in life to heal. The 7th son, you know, is given the power to heal. When I passed by thee and saw thee polluted in thy blood. No, the 7th son can't command the lame to take up their bed and walk, but as a comforter to the soul and body, he would know what God required to make the sick soul well. I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy blood, live. Army in World War I was a machine gunner. When I sleep, I have nightmares of that awful carnage. What good is the 7th son in this world?
Sergeant Henry Grigsby, 1925 to 1945. United States Army, 1943 to 1945. I went aboard with a heavy bag and heavier heart. Stacked my bag in the cold steel deck, walked topside to watch sweethearts, wives, mothers bid us a long farewell. To take a last long look at symbols of what I held most high in my heart. For many, a last look. I watched a fading symbol of home drift beyond the horizon. A bridge veiled in mystic fog was lost in the tiny white flickering of the waves below and beyond my line of sight.
Herman Kelly was born in 1913 and died in a coal mining accident on June 4th, 1944. His father was one of the teachers to learn them youngins some smarts in the old log school.
I was born on Lots Creek in eastern Kentucky. Went to school in the old log one-room school. I remember well my last teacher, Polly Rohr. I was the last student to leave that old building. They turned it into a barn after I left. My most vivid memory is not of school. The hot Oklahoma sun beat upon my head and brow. With parched throat and fever-blowing face, I leaned upon a gatepost in a town with a strange name to me, Tulsa. A gentle female voice asked, "Are you sick, son?" I was sick, but hunger was the driver. "No, ma'am, but if I don't get a bite to eat soon, I'm going to die or starve to death." Her gentle hands led me to the shade of the solitary tree, its leaves so still in that awful heat welcomed me, a tired, hungry stranger who had traveled weary miles on foot and rail. I hadn't found green pastures or fruit-filled orchards. Instead, I had seen death and awful inhumanity in Depression-era California. This I wouldn't have seen at home among my kin on Lots Creek. This kind lady brought me water and a plate of food. If memory served me right, I ate beans, potatoes, and corn pone. As I ate, a dog sitting under the tree growled, too hungry to look. I ate until the plate was clean. Then I looked at the dog. It seemed friendly enough and harmless to me, raising its upper lip slightly, just above its lip. Its thumping tail told me it meant no harm. Why's your dog growling, man? Why, you're eating out of his plate, she said with a grin.
Robert Crawford, age 83. Robert Crawford, age 83, born on Lots Creek, now a retired Michigan industrial worker. He is a fox barking high in the mountains near where he was born and attended classes at the old log school. He has heard many sounds and night voices of animals large and small this night, but the fox caught his attention and spurred memory this autumn night in 1971. Where have the hounds and the hunters gone?
The old fox rears her young in the wooded coves of our hills. Her raids on chicken flocks go unnoticed.
She no longer hears silver baying of hounds in pursuit. At night, absence of a hunter's fire glowing through winter dampened leaves assures her of a danger-free night to prowl.
She doesn't know men who once bragged and wagered on their dogs are old and weary of the chase. She doesn't know why horns no longer blow, why young hunters, young dogs no longer give her chase.
Happy birthday, Mary.
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.